Hi, this is JKPL trustee Danielle, and I'm going to share my favorite adult fiction book of 2021. So the book is Killings at Kingfisher Hill by Sophie Hannah. I read the ebook on the Libby app by Bridges, but you can also access a print and an audiobook at the library. I'm a huge fan of Agatha Christie, especially her mystery novel starring her famous detective Hercule Poirot. And after her death, the Christie estate gave permission to Sophie Hannah to write a new series of detective fiction starring Monsieur Poirot. Killings at Kingfisher Hill is the third in that series, but it functions like a standalone novel, so please give it a shot even if you haven't read any of the others. So, the plot of the book begins with four strangers approaching Hercule Poirot and informing him that he accused them of murder. Poirot has no idea what's going on, and the story is about him and the reader piecing together how these people are connected, who died a seemingly natural death that could be considered a murder, and ultimately what crimes were committed and why. Like others in Hannah's Poirot series, this book takes readers on an adventure with a bunch of twists and turns, but the author ties everything up in a very satisfying way. I read the book in November and it's still fresh in my mind since the characters were all unique and relatable and the plot was both credible and interesting. So I suggest picking up Killings at Kingfisher Hill the next time you're looking for a mystery read.
Okay.
First aid center, that's what I need. I got an owie. I gotta go to Band-Aid. You know what, a Band-Aid and kisses, all you need. It'll take care of my owie. They don't do that, though, with this book, Letters from the Pit. It is a fantastic book about Dr. Patrick Crocker. Oh, by the way, I'm Jo. Hi. And my finger's going to be okay. But if I had this man, I'd want him to take care of me. He is a very fantastically interesting writer, a real physician who wrote this book, Letters from the Pit. And the pit is the emergency room. Now, I thought about that. I thought, well, this guy is really something. He is amazing because I really learned a lot from him. I do kisses and I do Band-Aids. I don't do blood and guts, but he does. And what he was talking about was his philosophy is do no harm. After 37 years in the emergency room, he learned, number one, don't believe all the medical people around me. Observe the patient, which he did. And then, I won't tell you the medical stuff because I won't have it right. And somebody's going to say, girl, you better stick to Band-Aids and kisses. But this guy tells the most exciting things. It says the stories of a physician's odyssey in emergency room. I said, what's odyssey? That means long journey. And the write-up says, in the culture of comic book heroes, it's gratifying to be reminded that there are heroes out there. Every day, the staff of emergency rooms throughout the world are saving lives. Dr. Crocker provides intimate glimpses into the growing mind of the emergency physician, from residency to retirement. And he used so many things he learned as a brand new student, which his mind sort of absorbed, and that practicality, instead of the new modern way to treat something, was what really saved a lot of lives. In this compilation of notable, frightening, funny, sad, and poignant cases, you'll see him struggle with do no harm in the most challenging situations. Some people died, some people lived. A fellow was brought into the emergency room, gagging, and he smelled liquor on his breath and thought, They were ready to do a trach on him, and he goes, wait. And he started digging down in the throat, pulled out a sausage. Now, you will love this book, Letters from the Pit by Dr. Patrick Crocker.
Hi, my name is Karen Kramer. I recently read the book called The Bookwoman of Troublesome Creek. We can see that with the glare. Sorry about that. It's written by Kim Michelle Richardson. I really enjoyed it, and I think that you would like it too. So I'd like to give you my brief review of this book. Most people in Kentucky at the time subsisted in the coal mines. Cussy Mary, our main character, is a traveling librarian, one of the many in the Kentucky Pack Horse Library Service during the Great Depression. And she is the last in line of individuals with a rare genetic condition that causes her skin to appear blue. Cussy Mary is highly regarded by some as a dedicated and brave bookwoman who reaches remote and treacherous areas of impoverished Kentucky, determined to deliver reading materials and often a helping hand. But many are also very suspicious of her. They're downright discriminatory and even sometimes violent because of her appearance. There are many themes running through this story: hardship and poverty during the Depression, prejudice, bigotry, coal mining and the dangers of it, father-daughter relationships, and neighbors helping others. I simply couldn't put it down, and I cheered for her courageous and fierce dedication, risking so much to be true to herself and her beliefs in the power of books. One of the things I love about historical fiction is that it gets me into research mode, and I had never heard of the blue-skinned people of Kentucky. I had never been aware of the Kentucky Pack Horse Library Service that was part of the FDR New Deal during the Depression. And so I found myself really kind of deep diving into some of those subjects that were brought up in this book. And I think that you would be really interested as well. So I encourage you to read this. It's called The Book Woman of Troublesome Creek by Kim Michelle Richardson.
I am proposing Max Brooks' De-Evolution as the one you should be voting for. This is one of my favorite books I've read from the last couple of years. The premise sounds a little silly, but stick with me here. The idea of it is a bunch of tech bros set up a commune outside of Seattle. They're supposed to be living off the grid, just using solar power and apps and stuff like that, so that way it's self-sufficient on its own. Well, an earthquake hits and just devastates Seattle and knocks all their toys offline. And now at first it turns into they're just trying to survive when, you know, they just can't punch in what they want for dinner into an app to have a car bring it to them. However, the earthquake does something else. It causes a family of Sasquatches, aka Bigfoots, to move into the area. And this is where I lose a lot of people when I'm trying to suggest this book to them. But these creatures are terrifying. They are smart, they are sneaky, and they are strong. It turns into a real battle of survival between the people trying to live in the commune fending off these animals. This book is spellbinding. I was staying up till 2 a.m. Just trying to get as far as I could before I fell asleep. The first 50 pages or so kind of drag if you decide to pick up, but once you get past that, it is hard to put this book down. I think it should win because, as I said, it is a fantastic adventure book with lots of survival elements as they just try to fend off these creatures. So that's why you should vote for De-Evolution.
Alright, All Systems Red by Martha Wells is one of my favorite, most recent books, and I believe it deserves to win March Madness, and here are some of the reasons why. Quick summary. This is basically if a security droid or a early version of Terminator decided to go rogue, and decided to go rogue in the most relatable, sweetest fashion possible. Murderbot, self-named, has decided with his newfound freedom to watch soaps all day. He downloads media clandestinely through the system's internet and basically does his job in the most lazy manner he can while still protecting his people. Now, that makes the stories very relatable, very funny and sweet, but I assure you, this is basically science fiction distilled. There is pretty much anything you would like if you have read sci-fi or watched sci-fi at all. Star Trek, you've got it. Especially if you love Data as a character, that storyline comes up here. Star Wars, yeah, it's gotten some of that. See the Trade Federation if you want to see more of the droid storylines. C-3PO and R2-D2 interaction. even a little bit of, like I said, the Terminator series. And yeah, Isaac Asimov has a huge interaction with this. About the only thing that I can say that doesn't have a whole lot is space westerns, and even then, some of the books in the series are. And I'll bring up the best part of this: short and sweet stories. Okay, so if you're just interested in learning what sci-fi is about, you could do a lot worse than a little book like this.
Hi, this is Dawn, and I'm here for March Book Mania to say that this is my favorite book, Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. Now, this is an older book. It was published in 1991, but it is the beginning of a series that is still continuing to this day. And the award-winning TV series is a spinoff from this. This book is about Claire Randall, a combat nurse in the year 1945, who goes to the Scottish Highlands with her husband on a second honeymoon, only to visit a row of standing stones, to fall through them, and wakes up in the Scottish Highlands in the year 1743. Needless to say, it's not the best time to be a woman alone, not to mention the fact that she clearly is out of her element in a different century. And she makes friends with a Scottish Highlander who they turn out to have a powerful connection between them. And she ultimately has to make a decision between staying with this man, the Scottish Highlander that she's fallen in love with, or going back to her real life in 1945. There is time travel, there is a love story, there is action, there's battles as this book leads up to the Battle of Culloden during the Jacobean War and all of that. And it is just one long story. Like I said, this is about, this is the first in a series. And to find out if Claire stays with Jamie, her Scottish Highlander, or goes back to Frank, her husband, in her real time, you'll have to read the book, and I hope that you will.
So the book I chose is The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry, a French author. And this is kind of a children's book, but it's often described as like a children's book that's written for adults because it's got like a lot of themes that both like kids and adults can relate to. And it has illustrations too, which is fun. And it basically tells the story of this little prince here who lives on this planet, and all of his encounters to get to Earth, and like he encounters others who live on planets and stuff. And basically he ends up meeting the pilot, who is the narrator of the story, and they basically kind of like share a friendship, and it's just a very beautifully written story. And yeah, I think that's why you should choose it.
Hi, I would like to put up for consideration for our March Madness competition the book Fuzz by Mary Roach. This is an author I like a lot. She writes nonfiction, but it reads like fiction. It's hilarious. Fuzz is the book that I read from for our staff picks for 2021. And basically, it's a book that talks about man's interaction with the natural world and the conflicts that arise from it. Now, that might not sound funny or entertaining or educational, but bears, trees, let's talk nuts and legumes and poisonous plants and all these things where humans and the natural world interact and conflict arises. And the way she writes it, it is laugh out loud, roll on the ground funny. My 13-year-old son read this book, loved it, thought it was hilarious, very entertaining, and you learn a ton. If you don't know what to read, Mary Roach is a good way to go. She's written books about the digestive system, which is hilarious. And she's just very educated, wonderful sources, and you learn so much. Fuzz by Mary Roach.
Hi, I'm showcasing my pick for the
March Madness, and it is Sully by John Grisham. It's about a youngster from Sudan that comes to the United States to play college ball. He is 6'5" and is determined to bring all of his family back to America. It talks about his travels and about how he's accepted into the company of his fellow basketball players and his worries about what's happening at home when war strikes out. His father is killed, and his mom and siblings are on the run throughout the country in the mud and the rain, and he is determined to bring them home. I like this book because it's very exciting. It talks about determination, about faith in God, and what can happen if you just believe in yourself.
Hello, I'm Alex, and I believe that the book that should win the James Kennedy Public Library's March Book Madness is The Cold Dish by Craig Johnson. Craig Johnson's book, The Cold Dish, is the first in the Walt Longmire series. Walt is the sheriff of Absaroka County, Wyoming, the least populated county in the least populated state. So, when crime comes knocking, he is the only one to stand in the way. When Cody Pritchard, a man who got off too easy in a previous crime, winds up murdered, Walt hopes it's just a hunting accident. But with the crime Cody and his friends committed, revenge is the only motive. Walt sets out to find the murderer with the help of his witty Cheyenne Nation friend, Henry Standing Bear, and his sassy and vulgar deputy, Victoria Moretti. When the bullet cartridge used in the murder matches an uncommon rifle owned by Walt's best friend, he doesn't know who to trust. Read and find out how the sheriff of the Wild West serves justice. This book set the hook, imploring me to read the rest of the Longmire series. Walt's relatable style, Henry's witty remarks, and Vic's bad attitude have you wishing that you were in their truck for a ride-along. Craig Johnson's writing style, descriptive language, and unseen plot twists keep you turning each page. It's not just a great Western, it's not just a great mystery, it's a fantastic book and a start to an amazing series. So I hope that you pick The Cold Dish as the March Book Madness winner.
Hi guys, I am coming at you with my March Madness pick and why it should win. I picked The Road by Cormac McCarthy. It is about a father and a son, and they are journeying through dystopian America. So, like after the nukes fell, they are scavenging for food and supplies and things like that. And they come across some interesting people. Some are nice, some are pretty mean. And I chose this book because I read it in junior year of high school, and it what's the word? The book
connect. I really felt a connection to it. We'll
Yeah,
cut this part out, because this has been really good up to this point. All right? Hold on. All right, so we're going to make a clean cut here, okay? So we're going to pick up with why you are picking it, okay?
Okay.
So 3, 2, 1.
I chose this book because I had a strong connection with it because I really like my dad, and I thought the characters were really interesting. I love the father and the son. They also don't give you the dad and the son's names, which is really interesting. And I really enjoy this book, and I hope it wins.
Hello, my name is Diane Kramer, and I am here today at Paul's request to tell you about a book that I checked out from the James Kennedy Public Library that I especially enjoyed. I have had the wonderful experience to read many great books from James Kennedy Library, but this is one that was in my reading record that I had listed as excellent. So this is the one I'm choosing to tell you about today. The title of the book is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine, a novel by Gail Honeyman. I especially enjoyed this novel because it has quirky, eccentric, but very lovable and relatable characters. And in this day and age of social distancing, a novel such as this one provides a good lesson for us all. And that is basically the theme of Gail Honeyman's novel. The only way to survive is to open your heart. And that's what these three characters do eventually in the story. This is a brief summary. The main character is Eleanor Oliphant. She's a young woman whose childhood experiences have caused her much inner pain and obviously have affected her life, especially her adult life. She works in an office, and after her office day is completed, and on weekends, she leads a kind of isolated, very routine, very regimented life. She tends to avoid social interactions because she struggles with appropriate social skills. Um, Eleanor tends to say exactly what she's thinking, and as you can imagine, this brings about some embarrassing and, for our part, funny situations. Her life changes, however, when she meets Raymond, who is also a worker in her office. He's a bumbling, very unhygienic IT guy. And the two of them do strike up a relationship, but at first it's just completely office professional, nothing more than that. And then the two of them have an episode where they save Sammy. He is an elderly gentleman who has fallen on the sidewalk. And the three of them, Eleanor and Raymond and Sammy, become the kind of friends that we all hope to have in our lives. They rescue one another from lives of isolation that they've each been living. So they bring to one another a salvation of sorts, and it's quite uplifting. The novel, Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine, is, in my opinion, a fascinating story about extremes of emotions, about hope and loneliness. It's about humanity and tragedy, and the hope and humanity surface and survive very successfully at the end. I found that this is part comic novel. It's definitely laugh out loud, and I don't laugh out loud at too many of the novels I read because I read mainly dramatic novels and suspense stories and that sort of thing. But this was a laugh out loud comic novel. It is also part emotional thriller where we want to find out what goes on with the characters and what sort of relationships they will develop. And also it's part love story. I did find, just because of Eleanor's background and the isolation that she was first living, I did find it sad. But I wasn't pitying her, but instead I was rooting for her. I liked her very much as a character. I loved the wonderful, believable characters. I loved the story, and I encourage you to read it also for the message, the uplifting message that Gail Honeyman provides, and that is the theme that I mentioned early on. The only way to survive is to open your heart. Thank you, and I do hope that you choose to read this and you will enjoy it as much as I did.